Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News, and time now for the week that was. So let's take a look at the top stories that made headlines around the world this week, starting with how, as part of deliberate measures to stop alleged genocide against Christians in Nigeria, the U.S. government on Wednesday announced new visa policies against Nigerian suspects from entering the country, the U.S. that is. Now, U.S. President Donald Trump has been accusing the Nigerian government of turning a blind eye while Christian communities are being attacked in what he has described as a genocide by Islamist groups, even as he directed the U.S. Department of War to prepare for an onslaught to flush out the terrorist groups operating in Nigeria. Meanwhile, Nigeria's Minister of Information and National Orientation that you see on your screen, Mohammed Idris, reacted to the U.S. announcement of those restrictions.
To find solutions wherever great issues of visa are prerogatives of every nation. I mean, the American government or any other government, Nigerian government, anybody, any country has its own visa policy, which it reviews from time to time. Maybe you're asking that question, having the background of the recent tensions that we have had. Let me say that government to government, Nigeria and the United States are still working closely to find solutions wherever we have some challenges to be addressed. And the government of Nigeria is committed, is open, and is engaging the United States to sort out whatever areas there are to be sorted out in terms of some of those diplomatic tensions that have been created. But we still have normal diplomatic relations between Nigeria and the United States, and we are working perfectly together to ensure that we continue to advance the mutual interest of both countries.
In the meantime, governors of the 19 states in northern Nigeria and traditional rulers in their jurisdictions have declared illegal mining a major driver of insecurity and called on President Bola Tinubu to suspend all mining activities for 6 months and revalidate licenses to break the link between criminal syndicates and terrorism. They also threw their weight behind state police, urging federal lawmakers to fast-track constitutional amendments to decentralize policing. Arise News correspondent Nisi Gabriel reports.
The meeting of the Northern States Governors Forum and the Northern Traditional Council comes amid renewed insurgent activities across the region. Gathering at the Kaduna State Government's house, the leaders are seeking practical ways to implement solutions to the pressing security and development challenges confronting the North. After 10 hours of rigorous deliberations behind closed doors, the forum issued a communique demanding a 6-month suspension of mining activities in the region, citing illegal mining as a driver of insecurity. They also approved a regional security trust fund.
The forum reaffirms its wholehearted support and commitment to the establishment of state police. Accordingly, the forum encourages national and state assembly members in the region to expedite action for its actualization. The forum observed that illegal mining has become a major contributory factor to the security crisis in northern Nigeria. The forum therefore resolved to strongly recommend to the President to direct the Honorable Minister of Solid Minerals to suspend mining exploration for a period of 6 months to allow proper audit and subject all mining licenses to revalidation for a period of 6 months in active consultations with the various state governors, and in the process arrest the menace of artisanal illegal mining.
The forum pledged unconditional support for President Tinubu's renewed offensive to take the fight to insurgents' enclaves after deadly attacks across Kebbi, Kwara, Kogi, Niger, Sokoto, Jigawa, Kano, Borno, and Yobe states.
The forum commends the federal government under the leadership of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, for leaving no stone unturned in ensuring the prompt release of some of the abducted children and in handling other security challenges. We equally commend the sacrifices of our servicemen in uniform who continue to battle various forms of violent insurgencies across the country.
Earlier, the chief host of the event, Governor Obasani, warned against the deliberate politicization of insecurity through fear-mongering and distortion of facts, stressing that it only embodies criminals.
Every governor seated here works tirelessly to secure our communities. We coordinate, compare strategies, share intelligence, and hold one another accountable. We operate an informal but effective peer review mechanism where no idea is too small to be tested and no successful intervention too insignificant to be replicated.
The Sultan of Sokoto urged governors to double their efforts and unite against the region's worsening security challenges.
You know, I always feel bad when I hear that the governors don't want to do anything, the president doesn't want to do anything. No governor, no president will ask for people's votes. And when he takes office, all he does is to turn his back against the people. There are challenges, of course, and we believe by coming together, we'll defeat all those challenges. I want to ask the governors to double their efforts in coming together and speaking with one voice. There's only one North.
It is hoped that the resolutions from this meeting, once implemented, will help in addressing the challenges facing the North. Nisi Gabriel, Arise News, Kaduna.
All right. I mean, two important stories there. I mean, there's no way we will start the week that was segment without looking at those very important two developments in the course of the week. First is what came out of the United States through the Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, declaring the intention of the U.S. government to, in a way, deal with those that they suspect to be aiding or being sympathetic to a terrorist in Nigeria, whether they're in government or outside of government, those that they can identify, restricting, their access essentially to the United States of America. I think it's important to first take that one very quickly. I'm sure that if you throw something on the street, it will be a very popular development among Nigerians. Government officials will be reluctant to want to applaud it because in their opinion, they are still trying to work out things on the back of the meeting that the Ribadu-led Nigerian contingent in America had with the U.S. government. They met with Pete Hegseth, who's the Secretary of Defense. Secretary of War, he's now being called. But of course, to many Nigerians, it won't be a new development from the United States, given the position of the U.S. government before and after the 2023 elections, where the word on the street says that American government restricted, the visas already granted certain Nigerians, including, from what we have heard, certain traditional rulers, certain political office holders, certain justices of the Federation. And so if they could take that route at that time 2.5 years ago, I mean, it should be expected, really, that for the war on terror that they are fighting alongside Christians in Nigeria because of the allegations of genocide that they have said, that they will most likely, use the same thing. And I think that many Nigerians will applaud it, not because they want to see any Nigerians being denied access to the United States, but because many people might still be thinking that why is the government still a bit slow in dealing decisively with terror, in spite of all the activities that we are seeing, a lot of movement, but then are we seeing enough motion, as they say. And so that now puts a question mark on the decisions and the agreements that the contingent, the delegation from Nigeria reportedly had with the American government, which led to the Nigerian forming a committee that will be led by the NSA and Nuhu Ribadu. Because if it is as we are being told, then it is unlikely that 2-3 weeks after, Marco Rubio will go on air to announce that, hey, maybe it looks like they're still not satisfied with the pace at which the Nigerian government is dealing with all these issues. But again, we can't say that Nigerian government is folding its arm. The president declared a kind of emergency on security, which of course now leads me to what the 19 northern governors have done. On paper, to me, it's quite commendable because again, there's a connect that we can't deny to the whole idea of the world is watching, America is breathing down on Nigerians' neck, and then everybody is on their legs trying to deal with the issue one way or the other. And this is where the fact that all the 19 northern governors, together with the kings, with the traditional institution in the north, and practically all the stakeholders that are important to, in that part of the country, are saying with one voice, at least three key decisions. One is the fact that they now wholeheartedly support the creation of state police, which this government has always been, mouthing. Let's hope that with this support from the northern governors, they can, it looks like the state houses of assembly, which will need to pass it, and then the National Assembly, can see the reason why they need to move in that direction. And of course, they declared that they will be setting up a security trust fund, 1 billion each from each of the states, 19 all of them, totaling 19 billion every month, to deal with issues in addition to what the federal government might be doing. That's commendable if all the states will agree to it, particularly states from the north central. And of course, importantly, the idea of the illegal mining that they frown against, which everybody says that there's a nexus, undoubtedly, between illegal mining operations in the north and waves of banditry and terrorism. And they're saying is the proposal of 6 months suspension that I'm not sure how the government would deal with it, because this is not the first time that such a proposal would be on the table. Right. We would need to hear from Mr. Dele Alake, who's the minister in charge. We need to hear from the National Security Advisor, and of course from the new Defense Minister General Musa, to work with the northern stakeholders on how this will work. If you suspend mining for 6 months, what happens after 6 months? What sort of auditing are you carrying out? If you say audit all the licenses, does that have anything to do directly with at least, in total, not more than 20,000 armed people dealing with more than 200 million Nigerians? So those are the issues. Looks good on paper, but of course, at least to me, it shows that everybody now realizes that, there's fire on the mountain and we need to wake up, do a lot more than we've been doing before.
Absolutely. There's definitely fire on the mountain. I mean, like you said, these are, two of the really critical stories that we've seen this week. And I'll just start with the mining story, because what was interesting when I was reading was the fact that the Miners Association actually doesn't want this to go into practice.
They don't want it.
And they were basically saying that if you ban mining for 6 months, it actually creates a vacuum for insecurity to go up, because the legitimate miners will leave, and that will create, space for illegal operations, for terrorists, for bandits to come in and essentially take over where the legitimate ones were. So I think that, whether this is true or not, I think that their position is definitely important to mention as well, just because they're the ones who are actually doing the mining.
They should be taken on board.
Exactly.
Yes.
They should be kind of carried along as these decisions are being made by the governors. And I think there's a little bit of a disconnect sometimes between what local government's decisions are and the realities on the ground. So I think that, when we think about mining and whether we want to ban it for 6 months or not, the miners actually have to be carried along and, be put into context with how these decisions are being made. And something that they said was that, they took Zamfara as an example, because mining had been banned in Zamfara for a number of years.
That's correct.
But insecurity didn't necessarily go down.
It's still the hotbed
exactly.
of insecurity as far as illegal mining is
concerned. Exactly. So I think that it's something to be considered, but there's definitely a lot more security that will need to be put. Exactly.
So people should just basically look at it and see what works.
Exactly. See what works for the local context as well. So we'll definitely keep watching that mining story for sure. And then when it comes to the U.S. visa ban, I think that, I've been following the story relatively closely ever since it first emerged. And something that has changed is the fact that the U.S. seemed to be kind of going after Nigeria broadly. They talked about Nigeria as a now disgraced country. They talked about, going after government officials. So this visa ban, and you mentioned it, the fact that they're not necessarily saying that they're only going to go after government officials, but this could be any individual. And I think that we can't underestimate how much the U.S. is willing to go when it comes to immigration, when it comes to visas. Just this week, another story that kind of flew under the radar here was the fact that there's this 19-year-old college student who was arrested on her way to go to see her family for Thanksgiving at the airport. She was literally put in handcuffs. She had no idea that she was being arrested. And I say this to say that the U.S. government, when it comes to immigration under this administration, means business. And, Nigeria, yes, it experienced a visa ban previously, but we can't underestimate how far the U.S. is willing to go to make sure that their position when it comes to this Christian genocide is acknowledged, and Nigeria deals with the situation. And the fact that they're targeting specific individuals that could be regular people, So I think that we have to kind of watch how this story evolves, and just the fact that government officials whose visas would be revoked by the United States, like you said, what does this mean for our relationships and the talks that Nuri Badu led as well? Does that mean they didn't really go anywhere? So I think, there's definitely a lot to watch in this story as well. So we'll keep watching and seeing if any names come out in the coming weeks. I know Ted Cruz had said that
in most cases, they probably won't openly announce, but then you find out that you are not able to enter the U.S.
Exactly.
You may not even be able to fly, from Nigeria, because you just basically be advised to go and check the status of the visa, the 5-year visa that you are holding.
Exactly.
That, it doesn't look like this is valid.
But Senator Ted Cruz did say that he was going to publish a list of government officials and put out names. He said this a couple of weeks ago, that he was going to make it public who they were targeting.
That would be an individual lawmaker in America. It would be different from, say, Marco Rubio or President Trump, or Pete Hegseth, or the proper American government machinery from the executive side. If Ted Cruz does that, it's just a senator,
it's his prerogative.
And then it can be tested, if it's something that can fly, in the face of the law.
Okay. We'll take our next story now with the Central Bank of Nigeria this week removing all limits on cash deposits and raising the weekly cash withdrawal limit across all channels to 500,000 naira, up from 100,000 naira. So this measure will take effect from the 1st of January, and the cumulative deposit limit has been removed, while the fee previously charged on excess deposits will no longer apply. So the CBN also stated that the cumulative weekly withdrawal limit across all channels has been reviewed to 500,000 naira for individuals and 5 million naira for corporations. In addition, the special monthly authorization that allowed individuals to withdraw 5 million naira and corporates 10 million once a month has been abolished. For automated teller machines, daily withdrawal limits remains capped at 100,000 naira per customer, with a maximum of 500,000 naira weekly, which all forms part of the overall weekly withdrawal limit applicable to all channels, including point-of-sale transactions. And I think that, when it comes to monetary policy, for regular people who aren't necessarily economists, just regular people on the street, there's always a little bit of caution whenever the CBN releases these new declarations or statements, because sometimes the impact is somewhat traumatizing. Let's not lie. We all remember the Naira redesign policy that kind of came out of nowhere. Now we have this new announcement that came as well. And I think there's definitely pros and cons to this. The increase of cash flow is a good thing for families, for small businesses. It's critical to be able to kind of have that hard cash. But it seemed like the world, and Nigeria and Africa as well, had been wanting to move towards being a cashless society. So if we think about, if we just even compare the way transactions are done in a lot of African countries like Kenya and Nigeria, we're actually miles ahead of European countries and the U.S., I would say, when it comes to digital transactions, just being able to pay with your phone in official places. So this increase in cash that seems to be, coming along, they've explained why they want to do it, but it just seems counter to where the world is heading. And I think that good for small businesses, good for families. But then the flip side is cash is something that's largely used by criminal networks, by terrorists, by bandits. a lot of the videos that we see trending on social media of these terrorists when they're, taking videos and posting on TikTok, they're standing with wads of cash.
That's true.
They're not dealing necessarily with official debit cards, bank cards, credit cards, what have you. So cash is king in that sector of society. And I think that when we look at the broader context, we're just talking about insecurity, we're just talking about terrorism. Does an increase in cash fuel that? What is the impact of having more cash in society when we're currently trying to fight criminality and terrorism?
Absolutely. I mean, those are the two sides of the coin for this debate. But I think I do understand, the standpoint from which the CBN is coming. Small businesses, individuals who need little cash here and there on a daily basis. And of course, this is coming off the disastrous monetary policy of the former CBN governor Emefiele. You mentioned the redesign of the Naira, and now it all,
traumatized everyone.
When bonkers, today we spend the new Naira and the old Naira at the same time, most of them dirty, the old ones. But I think what CBN is considering is to make life a lot easier for the regular Joe on the street, for the regular Berber, for the regular, the SMEs and people who might need access to cash on a daily basis. If you look at it from that point of view, I do not think that the sort of volume that we're looking at would necessarily change the successes that we have recorded in terms of cashless policy. Even with the trillions of cash in circulation, I think we still do more than 83% of digital transactions, which is the goal of that cashless policy. This is something that they will need to watch in the next 3, 6, 12, 18 months to see if there will be changes. But of course, the flip side, as you said, first will be the terror part of it, particularly bandits and terrorists who might be emboldened more and may now have more access to cash if there is no cap limit on what they can withdraw directly from the banks, or if it has been expanded. The other part will also be the corruption part of it, in public service. Part of the idea of this policy is to discourage local governments, state governments, even federal government agencies from using cash transactions to pay for contracts, to pay for little things. If you increase the amount that people are able to collect, either as individuals or as corporate, then you might be unwittingly encouraging the sort of corruption that the policy sought, to discourage. So they will have to look carefully at the pros and cons. But my opinion is that the idea is to at least reduce the sufferings and the issues that the regular Joe is dealing with. And that may not necessarily be a bad idea, on its own. A few other things that the central bank will also need to look at coming from the Emefiele era, because the Emefiele era, all the 7-8 years of him, failed spectacularly in getting new notes to people like you and I, to those who might need it for whatever reason. I mean, even if you need 5,000 naira, let it be a decent 5,000 naira cash, not necessarily, that you want to spend in at parties. But then what we have seen over time, all through Emefiele years, and all of, the new CBN, is that cash is still, is still the king. And you have to purchase Nigerian naira to be able to give to somebody else or spend, somewhere or something. The idea of mint is now being run by cabals in many of our banks. And it looks to me like the central bank has not found a solution to it. They will need to deal decisively, with that aspect of it, particularly now that you are now saying officially that, yes, Nigerians can have more access to cash.
And we'll have to see how long this lasts as well, just generally.
There's no cap, obviously, on it.
Exactly.
So it basically means that this is a new time, this is a new regime. Let's see how we roll. But then 2.5 years, into this new administration, 1.5 years more, it looks to me like this is what we will deal with till the end of this tenure, and then review by the time that elections will hold and see if this is something we should applaud or that we should apply caution.
Right, absolutely.